A very large mistake that I was making in the past is what's called the fundamental attribution error. A lot of the time, what I was doing when I would communicate online is, say for instance, I had an issue with something and I was talking to somebody about it. I would think that the problems of this conflict or whatever are inherent inside of that person's internal deposition, meaning they were purposefully being like that, and that there's no external influence around them that was making them think the way they were thinking. They were just being spiteful or angry or, just an overall pain in the ass on their own. And then my side of the story was, oh, well, my reasoning is from external reasons alone. It isn't from my own internal deposition at all. Like, it's not my fault I was doing all this. So basically in conflict, that's what a lot of people do. And I see a lot of that in regards to, discussing matters of star evolution and the universe and that kind of stuff. Especially when people have different worldviews. There's a lot of conflict there. So instead of having to deal with that type of error in judgment and thinking, what you should look at when you see somebody and when you want to discuss a point with them is to not only look at them as their internal deposition, but look at the people that they're surrounded with. Who are the people they surround themselves with? What's on their mind as well? What kind of influence would they have on their thoughts, on their actions, on their behaviors, on their habits? Because if you can understand their external environment, you can understand more about how they will view the world as well. At the same time, when you make an argument for something, you're going to have your own internal deposition to deal with. You have to watch yourself and don't try to think that everything around you, your external environment, is to blame, when a lot of it is inside of you as a person. And I'm starting to learn that as well. I was extremely aggressive when I was getting the theory out there, but now I'm starting to calm down and things are starting to go smooth sailing for me, and I'm just like realizing that there's a lot more to the picture than what meets the eye. We're dealing with very large organizations that have been around for hundreds of years. You're dealing with tradition and perceptions of authority. You're dealing with different types of goals here. On that topic, you have what's called the TRIP model, which is the topic goals, the relations goals, the identity goals, and the process goals. And the two goals that are on the surface when you talk to a scientist are going to be topic, content related, and process related. So you have structured environments where they want to make it appear as if they're only looking at the topic, and that's the big issue here. But what scientists are never going to tell you is that there are relational and identity goals here. You have people who only look at you if you're also of their same stature inside of those groups. You have people who, if they get talked bad about, they need to always save their face, regardless. If you have a new theory out there that conflicts with what they already believe, they're not going to come out unless they actually, tell you that it bothers them, that they were wrong about all this in the past. Those are the hidden ones, the relational and identity goals. Identity goals are, why someone would go to school for many years to study this stuff. And the relational goals, like how do they fit into the bigger picture? They want to get a feeling of importance. They want to have their self-esteem, built up, and they want you to believe that all the relational and identity goals are just those are not important at all. We're only worried about the topic and the content. Now that's what they want you to believe. But the topic and the content is only one part of many parts of someone's overall goal-making process. As well, there's another idea here. This wasn't from this class, but the professor mentioned it in passing. It's called PPO, which is Preference for Procedural Order. So you have people who need structure to determine what's factual about the world around them. And then you have people who can do things on their own and can free will think on their own. And if they're given procedure, they can do that too. They can work inside of an environment that has structure, and they can work outside of an environment that doesn't have any structure, or outside of a structured environment. But what that means is that to encompass both of those types of personalities, it's best to have an environment where you have procedure. You always are going to need procedure because of that, because some people cannot function without structure and procedure. And that's one of the process goals with science these days. They want you to believe that everything is done via a process, step by step. But the truth is that you have people like myself and a lot of my listeners who can free will think and do things on their own terms, and can organize these kinds of thoughts without having to go through some type of peer review process, without having to get approval from a dean for a specific type of paper, because it will upset the university's motto or whatever. And you also don't have to worry about getting approval from people who are inside the system, who are already inside that system, and they can only approve certain things. People who free will think don't even have to worry about all that. But since you need structure, because people will be lost in some specific cases, that's what happens. You give people structure, and that's called a preference for procedural order. But yeah, that's the main purpose for scientific groups and master's programs, where you have a certain set of ways of looking at things and of doing things, and they put your mind into like a box type mentality where you can only do as much as the box allows you to do. But if you don't need that procedure, you can just straight out of the box and then make great discoveries just like that. It's easy. But that's what people are trained to do, is think that discoveries in the scientific community are always going to be done via procedure and process, which is very, very, very incorrect. A large number of discoveries throughout history have been made by accident.